In my last video, I discussed some of the logistical issues present in the Time Meddler, while also going into a broader discussion of how history and time are treated throughout the early years of Doctor Who. But there are still a few interesting things about this topic I didn't cover last time. Please watch that video if you haven't already, as today we ask, what exactly were the monk's intentions with his master plan? What would his new future for Earth have been like? And by stopping him, what exactly did the Doctor achieve? When we learn about the monk's interferences in time, for the most part they seem beneficial to humanity, or at the very least neutral. The monk discussed helicopters with Da Vinci and helped build Stonehenge. He tells us the reason for his meddling in 1066 is to benefit the world by advancing humanity's technological progress. His motives aren't purely for the benefit of others, of course. He put £200 in a bank in 1968 and nipped forward 200 years to collect the profit. We'll come back to this later, but for the most part the monk is never really characterised as being an evil character, or even that much of a villain really. The only reason the Doctor wants to stop him is because of the fact he's meddling with history at all, not the actual end result of what he hopes to achieve with his meddling. The Doctor calls him utterly irresponsible, but that's hardly a damning sentiment if he had truly villainous motivations for his master plan. His motivations for meddling generally aren't explored much beyond the basic wanting to make the world better by having things happen before their time. But in Checkmate, he tells us two of his specific aims.
A few hints and tips from me, they'd be able to have jet airliners by 1320. Shakespeare would be able to put Hamlet on television.
The first purpose-built jet airliner was the British de Havilland Comet, which first flew in 1949 and entered service in 1952. So if you take the monk's statement at face value, he wants to advance Earth history by about 630 years. This means that Hamlet, first performed in 1609, would be first performed on television in the technological equivalent of the year 2239 at the earliest. This pushing ahead of history would also lead to every other Doctor Who story set after 1066 being pushed forward too, though not necessarily all by 630 years, as the monk's plans clearly stretch beyond just meddling in 1066. For the purposes of this hypothetical scenario, we'll say that from 1320 onwards, progress stays stuck at being 630 years ahead. To put this into perspective, this shift forward in time the monk plans means that by 1963, Ian and Barbara would be living in the technological equivalent of the year 2593, exactly 100 years after Vicky's native time of 2493, as stated in The Rescue. With that in mind, let's deal with the monk's little bank scheme. We're told the following.
Put £200 in a London bank in 1968, nipped forward 200 years, and collected a fortune in compound interest.
Taken at face value, this means that the monk picks up his fortune in the year 2168, not very long after the Dalek invasion of Earth. It seems highly unlikely that any bank would still be in operation such a short period of time after the invasion, so how exactly did the monk get his fortune? We know from this line of the monk's in the Daleks' master plan that he is aware of the Daleks, although he has never actually met them.
Good morning, my son. Dalek.
Wait! So, you have heard of the Daleks?
Yes, by reputation.
Although it's possible that the monk learned about the Daleks at some other point during his travels, the fact that he visited Earth not long after the Dalek invasion of Earth for his bank scheme makes it seem likely that this is the point where he learned about the Daleks, by their reputation. This may seem like a bit of a stretch, but it's possible that this may have been the intention of Dennis Spooner, albeit retrospectively when he wrote the latter half of Dalek's master plan. At the start of 1965, Dennis Spooner was about to be succeeded as story editor by Donald Tosh and incoming producer John Wiles. During this time, Spooner wrote a document for the pair called The History of Doctor Who, featuring short synopses of every story up to that point, and general guidelines about the characters of the series. This is in fact the first detailed list of every story to date ever written for Doctor Who, something that wouldn't be seen again until the show's 10th anniversary 8 years later. Although the document covers every story up to Mission to the Unknown, it was written while The Crusade was still being filmed and broadcast, which shows through in certain quirks such as that Stephen is referred to as Michael, and the Daleks' master plan is still referred to as though it's only 6 episodes long. The most interesting and relevant part of this discussion, however, is in the opening paragraph.
I think it is a point to bear in mind that any stories that are commissioned and are set in the future will have to be checked from their date point of view. Serials G, K and L all involve the Earth in some way, so any date given must not clash with these.
It's often assumed that 1960s Doctor Who played things fairly loose with continuity, but this document sheds a light on just what a tight ship Spooner had been running as story editor. Although annoyingly he doesn't actually date most of the stories in the document, he does make specific mention to the dating of the Dalek stories. Coincidentally, this would have been around the point when the Time Meddler was undergoing rewrites, so letting through a reference to the monk visiting the Earth in 2168, 1 year after the Dalek invasion of Earth, in his own script no less, is something of an oddity. We know from Masterplan that the monk is capable of jumping time tracks, something I covered in depth in my previous video. At the time, the connection I made between the monk's line about jump crossing the track being a specific reference to the Space Museum was admittedly rather tenuous. However, in addition to Spooner writing the history of Doctor Who, there is further evidence in the script from Masterplan to suggest that this was in fact a deliberate callback. During the sequence where the Doctor sabotages the monk's TARDIS, the ship transforms into miscellaneous shapes in quick succession. One of these shapes, as specified in the script, is a Martian-like small building, or Zeros Space Museum. Given that this direction appears not only in the same episode as the monk's boast, but only a handful of pages apart in the script, it's not unreasonable to suggest that Dennis Spooner was intentionally calling back to an earlier script he had heavily rewritten, or at the very least had it subconsciously on his mind as he wrote the line. With all this in mind, it seems likely that the 2168 the monk visited for his bank scheme was in fact an alternative Earth to the one we see in the Dalek invasion of Earth, running along another time track. An Earth where the Daleks attempted to invade perhaps, but were repelled by the advanced technology of the Earthmen. Perhaps a technology some 630 years in advance of the technology in the proper timeline. The monk is a time meddler after all, so experiencing the repercussions of his actions before they happen must surely be a common occurrence, particularly if he can jump across time tracks whenever he wants. And of course, by stopping the monk's master plan, the Doctor left the Earth vulnerable not only for Dalek invasion, but open for countless other invaders. It wouldn't be the first time he'd done so after all. Just ask the Aztecs, or the people of Troy. We'll never know for sure what Spooner's thought process was when he was writing these stray lines. It seems unlikely that someone who went through such an effort to make sure Doctor Who had a solid continuity wouldn't have pondered these exact issues, and it's a testament to the strength of his and so many others' work that we can theorise and speculate about it, almost 6 decades later. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so sorry this video took so long to get out. I ended up being far busier than I'd planned for various reasons. In fact, I'm happy to announce that I'm helping out with the next series of Terry Nation Army over on Dalek 6388, so please subscribe to them if you haven't already. Massive thank you to Richard Bignell and Rhys Williams for helping me with this video. It wouldn't have been anywhere near as good without their involvement. Thank you once again for watching. I'm working hard on my next video, a character history on Sarah Kingdom, and hopefully that will be ready quite soon. I hope to see you there!